So this video is created to statistically identify whether the marks obtained by students are fair or not. So there exists a theorem called the central limit theorem, which says that the distribution of samples are approximately normally distributed, which is also called as Gaussian distribution. And this type of distribution is normally followed in nature very well. For example, if you talk about the heights of people or their weights, or you can talk about size of things produced by machine. It could be errors in measurements or blood pressure of patients, and similarly marks of students that are obtained in a test. So a normal or Gaussian distribution is a bell-shaped curve, and it's shown here. So and it is followed with an equal number of frequencies above and below the mean value. So if we look into this curve, we see that there exists a mean value just at the middle of the curve where the peak is seen. While on both sides of this mean value, there is a chances, a probability or a symmetry exists about the curve. And we see that if the distribution is normal, so a normal distribution curve is followed, then the mean, the mode, and the median of the class number will all be equal, and the curve will be symmetric about the center, that is about the mean. So if this is the mean value, the curve will be symmetrical about this mean value, which in other words means that half of the values will lie to the left of the center and half will lie to the right of the mean value. While if the class number is quite high, if the class is quite large, then we'll be having a sort of continuous distribution as shown here. If the class number is not large, we have a limited class numbers, then in that case we'll be seeing a type of bin formations like this. But in fact, this bin formation will also resemble the bell-shaped, the normal Gaussian distribution curve. So these are the characteristics that are associated with the normal Gaussian distribution. Now further, if we talk about the standard deviation, so when we are interested in drawing the Gaussian curves or looking into the Gaussian curve, which is indicative of any data under study, then we talk about standard deviation of the values, and that standard deviation is indicative of how wider or narrower the curve is. So if you are going to have higher standard deviation, then in that case you might see that the curve is wider like this. And if you have a smaller standard deviation, in that case the curve will be narrower as shown here. So here you will see a narrow curve which indicates a smaller standard deviation. So normally more than 90% of the class of any class under study are closer to the peak. So if you talk about the class distribution, you will see that more than 90% will be closer to the peak at lying in this region. For instance, if we look into the figure which is shown on the top left side, too many smarter students in the class may lead to curve closer to higher marks with lower standard deviation. So that is narrower curve which will be having a tall peak like this. So for instance, you may talk about students in an extremely competitive environment. Now if the same curve will also hold for too many bogus students in a class, but the curve will be closer to the lower mark. So the shape of the curve will remain same, but the curve will be lying towards the minimum or lower marks if the students are not as competitive, or all the students are not competitive or bogus. But if suppose that there are variety of students in any class, then the curve will have a high standard deviation. Some of them will be bogus, lying on the left side of the curve, while some smart will be lying on the right side of the curve, while the majority of the average students will lie and are shown by the peak, so will be closer to the peaks. For example, you may talk about students appearing in the GATE exam, which is conducted nationwide. So it is supposed that all types of students appear in the GATE exam, and the curve will be resembling a normal Gaussian distribution curve if drawn. So, and similarly, the grading scheme that is followed in our institution is also shown here. So, and normally if the exams are fairly conducted for any subject, then there will be a small part of students who attain grade A, while a very small frequency, the class frequency will be having grade E, while we will observe that a large population of the student will be closer to C, B, and D. Now, since we are having a change in the grading system in the upcoming, the changes that are being incorporated, so we have grading system change like A plus A, B plus B. And this is because we see that people that are coming in our institute are getting a bit smarter, and that is why the curve is being shifted towards right, and thus we are more interested in further classifying students into A plus A, B plus B instead of AB only. While if we talk about the skewed data, so as shown in the bottom two figures, if the data is skewed, so you will have a curve shown either by this or by this. So a skewed data indicates that that there is a presence of some sort of external forcing function in the system. So if there exists an external forcing function, then it will cause this normal distribution to be shifted either towards right if this forcing function aids the class to attain higher marks. So this biasing could be because of some exam questions might have been leaked prior to the exam, or students might have cheated during the exam using some external means, or the examiner pre-planned to do a favor on the students while the students' responses to the exam questions were normal. And in case if the external forcing function makes the class attain lower marks, then you'll be having a type of curve as shown here. For example, if we talk about this particular curve, so this is the curve which shows the class marks of a particular subject, the quiz test taken for a particular subject, which shows that there exists a fair marks distribution and is indicating that there is no type of biasing that exists while the students were taking exam. While if we look into this particular curve, so this curve is highly skewed as indicates a sort of biasing. So this in fact is the class marks which were obtained by you people in quiz 2, and it shows clearly uh, an external forcing function making the curve highly skewed towards right. Furthermore, the unfair approach from the students was clear from the last quiz, that is quiz B, the third one. This quiz had repeated questions exactly same as asked in quiz 2, which was held just 2 days ago, with only change in the parameters. And you know what happened in that quiz.